Okay, so today we're going to unpack this new AI research paper. It's called Scaling Up Test Time Compute with Latent Reasoning, a Recurrent Depth Approach.
Wow, what a mouthful.
Yeah, right. And, it's all about a model that can basically think in latent space.
Okay.
Have you ever, been working on, a tough problem and, the solution just kind of clicks into place
Huh.
before you can even put it into words?
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of what we're talking about here.
Hmm.
The model is solving problems, but internally,
Right.
before it generates any text output.
So it's sort of like doing the work in the background and then just giving us the answer.
Exactly. And this research suggests that maybe just using language isn't enough for, real AI reasoning.
Interesting.
It makes me think of what Jan LeCun has been saying.
Oh, yeah, Meta's chief AI scientist.
Right. He's been pretty vocal about the limitations of large language models.
Yeah, he's basically saying that we're all fooled by how fluent they are with language.
Yeah, and we kind of assume they must be super intelligent just because they can,
Right? They can write and speak so well, but that's
exact.
not the whole picture.
So what are we missing if just manipulating language isn't enough?
Well, that's where this idea of thinking in latent space comes in.
Okay.
This model is doing something totally different.
So walk us through how that works.
Okay, so picture this, like a really complex network of calculations happening inside the model,
Uh-huh.
turning through all these different possibilities
Okay.
before it settles on an answer.
Okay.
But here's the key. It's all happening kind of in the background,
Right.
in this hidden latent space before any text is generated.
So it's not showing its work like chain of thought does. It's more like it's having an internal brainstorming session.
Exactly.
And then it just gives us the conclusion.
Precisely. And what's wild is that the researchers found the more the model thought in this latent space, the better it performed on all these different tasks.
Oh, wow.
From high school math problems to complex moral scenarios.
So I really put it through its paces.
Yeah, and the results were really impressive.
That's pretty remarkable. How does this approach compare to the chain of thought approach?
Well,
Are there any advantages to this latent reasoning?
there are actually quite a few. For one, it doesn't require, massive amounts of specialized training data,
Oh, really?
like chain of thought does. You don't have to feed it tons and tons of examples of reasoning.
That seems like a huge advantage, especially with how data-hungry AI models are.
Absolutely. It makes the development way faster and more efficient.
That's a game changer. What about memory requirements?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't all that text generation and chain of thought take up a lot of memory?
Totally. Chain of thought can be a real memory hog.
Uh-huh.
Latent reasoning is way more streamlined and efficient.
Okay, so we're talking speed and efficiency.
Yeah,
But what about the quality of the reasoning itself?
right.
Does this approach actually lead to more human-like problem solving?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
This combination of latent space thinking and then, the language output actually mirrors how we tackle problems. We brainstorm internally, we weigh different options,
Right.
and then finally we express those thoughts through language.
It's like we're seeing a more sophisticated kind of thinking here.
Yeah.
It's not just pattern matching or clever language manipulation.
Exactly.
The paper mentions meta-strategies and abstraction.
Right.
What do those terms mean in this context?
Basically, it means the model isn't just memorizing stuff. It's developing these higher-level thinking skills.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, it might figure out the most efficient way to approach a problem, or recognize underlying patterns and principles.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like it's learning how to learn.
Yeah, in a way.
So this could be a big jump forward in what AI can do, right?
Yeah, potentially.
But what does it mean for the rest of us?
Right.
People who aren't AI expert. How could this tech actually change our lives?
Well, imagine AI assistants that really get you patterns. They understand what you need and what you, almost like they can read your mind.
Okay.
They could solve tough problems really fast
Uh-huh.
and come up with solutions you'd never even thought of.
And what about things that need common sense?
Yeah, that's been so hard for AI.
Right.
This kind of reasoning could be huge for that.
That's a pretty exciting picture.
Yeah,
But we probably shouldn't get too carried away, right?
true.
The paper says this model is still in the early stages. They call it a proof of concept.
Yeah, it's just one study.
Okay.
We need more research to see if this will really work for creating that super smart AI we're talking about.
Right. Makes sense. So back to Yamakun and his critique of large language models.
Uh-huh.
Do you think this latent space reasoning could actually answer his concerns?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's possible that this level of internal reasoning could get us closer to the kind of AI McCoon wants.
Okay.
But he has some pretty specific ideas about what's missing
Right.
from today's AI.
Like what?
Well, he talks about the need for AI that can learn and reason about the world in a more grounded way. like connected to the physical world.
Okay.
It calls them world models.
World models.
Yeah, AI that can kind of simulate the world and interact with it.
Like we do.
Exactly.
So there's still a lot of debate in the AI world about the best way to make truly intelligent systems.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's what makes it so interesting.
Right.
There are so many different paths being explored. It's always changing. It's hard to say where it'll all end up.
And the paper mentions that this latent space thinking doesn't have to replace chain of thought?
You're right. They could actually work together,
Oh.
combining the strengths of both.
So we could have these hybrid models.
Exactly. Get the best of both worlds.
And that makes me wonder, could we combine latent space reasoning with other AI stuff too?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Like what about reinforcement learning? Or even those world models LeCun talks about?
Wow, so many possibilities. It's like we're at the beginning of something huge.
Yeah, but we need to be careful, right?
Of course, we have to think about how these technologies will affect society
Right.
and the way we work and even what it means to be human.
It's a lot to think about, and it's important to talk about it now,
Absolutely.
while all this is happening. So before we finish today's deep dive, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
Think about how you solve a hard problem.
Hmm.
Do you kind of work through the solutions in your head before you write anything down or type anything out?
In that internal space.
Exactly.
Of thinking.
If you do, you might be more like these AI models than you realize.
Interesting.
That moment when you suddenly understand something,
Uh-huh.
before you can even put it into words,
Right.
maybe that's a glimpse into what thinking really is.
That's a fascinating thought.
Makes you wonder if we're figuring out how intelligence works, like in general.
Yeah, not as just artificial intelligence.
Right.
It's like we're learning about our own brains by studying AI.
So to wrap up, what are some of the big takeaways for our listener today?
Well, first, I hope I see how fast AI is changing. Like this latent reasoning research, it's just one example of the amazing stuff happening right now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that we might have AI that can really think and solve problems, like way better than we can even imagine right now.
Yeah, and the second thing I hope people get is that AI isn't something way off in the future. It's already changing our lives.
Uh-huh.
And it's only going to get more important.
It's a really powerful tool,
Right,
but we have to use it the right way.
exactly. As we make AI smarter and stronger, we have to make sure it's good for everyone.
So to our listeners, stay curious about AI.
Yeah,
Keep learning about it. Ask questions.
don't be afraid to ask the hard questions.
Because the future of AI is up to us.
It's true. The choices we make today will shape what AI becomes.
And who knows, maybe someday you'll be using AI that can not only solve problems, but also do creative things.
Yeah, like compose music.
Right, or write amazing books.
The possibilities are endless.
It's a really exciting time, and we can't wait to see what happens next with AI.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been fun. 47